Hey, you know how it is when you have a question and you want the first answer, the direct answer, right? The universal answer, the eternal answer, or the eternal solution. Um, because when I was prompted to put my first video up in Reno, Nevada, a couple of years ago in summer of 2020, I realized when it comes to doing a full data analysis on a star system, a matrix, if you will, that's too much. I can't. You can't. When it comes to what you call qualifiers and givens, I don't even do that because somebody will say, well, you left this piece of data out. You didn't cover that, as if I'm not being comprehensive or what's called a complete qualitative and quantitative analysis of all the data, right? Because then there's going to be somebody else that becomes aware of something that says, oh, but yeah, but there's another piece of information over here that represents another variable. Okay, so if you're looking for the under causality of an engineering problem, which is a network problem, right, which is a server problem, which is a matrix problem, because we're not experiencing perfect balance, so there's an equal distribution of eternal love that's flowing through every circuit, right? Because at the end of the day, you know that it began out of what love is, which is an eternal engine of creation, right? So you know that it began with eternal love. That makes the answer simple in solving the problem, because what is it that heals us? Love does. And how that relates to what I call accessories. I covered a little bit of this before with another video that I did, talked about what I call, you know what an adjunct is, those that have worked in the healthcare professions, what an adjunct is. That is an artifact. Like when you take blood pressure, okay? Certainly I can take my fingers and take your pulse. That's direct contact. Now my soul is experiencing your pulse. Now my soul and my spirit is making direct contact, physical contact with you and your energy, your auric energy. Your soul and your spirit. I'm experiencing your soul eyes to eyes, right? Windows to windows, right? Electron, protons, and neutrons, contact to contact. Now I'm experiencing just like I did with Misha. Remember, I used Misha as an example, right? I didn't have any technology with me other than the soul and the spirit that is represented by my consciousness, which is my energy, which is my oversoul, as a polarity integrator. So what I did with her, for example, was I'm not using a blood pressure cuff or a terahertz wand or a Rife system, okay? I can map read her energy field as is and experience that the problem that she's having is getting rid of everything that her energy is being held captive to, that is preventing her from releasing all that so she can unwind that coil. Go vertical northbound and release it all. It's just like clearing your cache and doing it within her own heart and soul. Soul to soul, spirit to spirit. That's direct contact. That's direct healing. That's what we call DC. That's direct healing through the one. A Manu can do that. That's what we call the good old-fashioned way. Okay? So when you realize, having done, as I've talked about a full data analysis, because when I'm a child, I'm measuring how long is it going to take to heal, right? If you will, an entire 15-dimensional grid. An entire matrix. How long is it going to take to heal it all? As a result of everything that's been experienced here since the matrix was first completed. Now you go through all the history, all the way back. All the wars, all the damage, right? So now you're back to the inception of fire, the inception of light, the inception of the first spark of light, the inception of the first soul, the inception of the first torsion field, right? And now we're where we're at now. Okay? So when I put technology, and I've covered this before about technology, about the acceleration when one unit of consciousness is connected to another form, or one cell is connected to another cell, to another cell, to another cell, to another cell, to another cell. One unit of consciousness now communicating with another one through a line of communication, which is a voltage line of communication between the one and everything else that happens after that. When you consider everything that's happening simultaneously within the all creation, right? And how fast technology will accelerate when you're on fire to create. Which means you're learning how to put things together, how to build things. So obviously it starts with a network, a communication system, so we can all communicate with each other. Consciousness to consciousness, neurons to neurons, soul to soul, spirit to spirit. Hey, we're all translating the language of math and music. We're all tuned in. And we're all experiencing a clear signal because we're all experiencing the first line of communication with the first pillar of light. This first pillar of love. That's the Godhead. That's the source head. That's the prime creator. That's the grand creator. The source from which it all began. That's the EFFI field. That's the unified field, which means it's in perfect balance. Because atoms naturally seek to be in a state of perfect balance, which means the consciousness, which is the soul, is in a state of balance. Now it's experiencing the law of least effort to experience what? Balance. That's what it is. Balanced atoms. Balanced spheres. So that nobody is experiencing any broken arrows, no turbulence, no broken waves of communication. That means there's no interference signals walking all over my signal so that somebody else can't experience the signal that I'm sending out. Isn't that what they do? That's why they're antenna wars. And DNA is an antenna. So these are DNA wars, which are represented by seeded races wars. Using antennas. Knock your signal out. Scramble it. Interfere with it. So that others can't pick your signal up with their antenna. So one of the things that this becomes a really convoluted, and you can measure this over time, right? When I grew up as a kid, most folks that I grew up with, my neighbors, teachers, all the professions, right? All the folks that work in the public service community, all the people working all the professions like nurses, doctors, engineers, judges, lawyers, right? Scientists, military, the whole gamut, all the jobs, or if you will, everybody on the stage that represents wearing a masquerade, a uniform, a skin suit. Yeah? You want to be a cowboy, you dress like a cowboy. You want to be a military guy, you dress a military uniform. Right? You want to be, what's her name that's coming down the Matterhorn in Disneyland? Tinkerbell? Want to be Tinkerbell? Be Tinkerbell. So it's all a stage, all the characters. I call them characters because they're character maps, archetypes. Hey, what do you want to be for a day? You want to be a cowboy? I remember I covered this before. What do you want to be? What do you want to present yourself as? Aaron and I had a bit of a conversation this afternoon where one of his friends showed up as a praying mantis. Because the energy that was represented by the consciousness that is represented by that friend can present itself. And Aaron knew that it was being communicated by that being that was presenting itself to a way that it can communicate with Aaron. Whoa. Just like felines. Right? Right? Who's that cat? Who's running that software? The consciousness energy, the soul conscious energy, that cat. Who's that cat? And maybe that cat decided to come and visit you to remind you, hey, I'm still around, but now I'm in a cat. I came by to purr next to you and heal you so that you can feel my energy directly. Direct contact, direct current. Experiencing the love. So we know that love is what heals us, right? Direct love. This is one of the reasons why. I remember Patty Broussard said one time, when you go to a hospital, you're not going to get healed in there. That's why I knew when I was going through the drug stuff when I was a young teenager, right? And they said, hey, you need to go to a rehab program. Okay, well, where can I find some love around here? Because it's the soul that gets fragmented. That's the altar. That's when it goes Black Mirror. So the more light that's being pushed through the servers, right, through all the circuits, through the lines of communication, people are waking up and they feel better. And what is the evidence of that? Aaron and I talked about that this morning. people on this island that you might have expected, but we don't play with expectations. Remember the director of the movie? If you're not acting exactly action, lights, camera, action, if you're not acting on the stage exactly the way that you're being directed to do that, which means you're following the script. You do something that's not following the script because I'm the director that's socially engineering your consciousness to do what it is you're supposed to do, and all of a sudden you do something. Well, how'd that happen? There must be a glitch. Remember the movie Tom Cruise with Minority Report? Hey, we need to go out. An idiot light just got flagged. That robot didn't act as it was supposed to. Right? Somebody with a joystick must have been taking a coffee break. I know. So on a much larger scale of this, what it means is over time you realize, I'll just give you another example. It used to be when I was a kid, the doctor that I went to, his name was Dr. Morton. This would have been like 1960. And if I wasn't feeling, my mother took me to this doctor. He wrote a prescription, okay? And so I took that down, my mother took that down to a drugstore. And the pharmacist was what's known as a compound pharmacist, which meant that he had the raw ingredients that come from nature. So that means he had to know something about alchemy. So he wasn't pulling a bottle off the shelf, which was binary, okay, that came from big pharma. No. He was using stuff that comes from mama, from the earth, right? And compounding those materials and putting them together. And then you're getting a completely different, if you will, medicine that's coming from plants, minerals, volcanic rock, granite, the actual hologram itself, right? And so as a result of that, you see the difference. So now we're back to trust issues, because if I don't know what that pharmacist is doing, see, I'm not a pharmacist. I never got to school and learned how to do that like he did that. But I figure I'm a little kid. I trust you because you got a big diploma sitting there on the back of that wall that tells me that you spent 20 years of your life, which means the intention of your energy was to learn how to do what you're doing in front of me in this pharmacy. Okay. So I have to trust you that if you're using your energy over the course of 20 years to learn how to do what you're going to do in front of me, that I'm going to put into me. Now we're back to exposure, dose, the dose-response relationship. Now we're back at the cameras and exposure time, holographic ISO frame rate speed time. Okay. And atoms and matter, right? Brrr. Consciousness, experiencing higher speed. Okay, because I'm now experiencing slower speed, where you're held captive of something feeding on your energy. So this guy's been to this school to learn how to do the compounding, right, of these elements, because that's what they are, elements, like elementals. Okay, we're going to put these elementals in order for them to bond in the structural way in which they do, because they are bonded together in the way in which they do, that you're now going to put that into your body, which is your computer, and see how your computer reacts to that, because I'm full of elementals, right? And see what the elementals do with that, right? And so I have to trust, as a little kid, okay, I'm not going to stand there as a little kid and say, in order for me to know whether or not you know what you're doing, I would have to go to the school. I'd have to know, I'd actually have to be able to read your entire timeline, to see whether or not what you learned is going to work for what it is that you're going to do, that I'm going to allow me to experience. Because I'm going to experience the result of what you learned. So I've got to trust that what you learned has integrity. But I can trust you, which means I can trust what you learned. Because what you learned, I'm now going to experience the result of that. So now we're back to when they were putting labels on food. Oh, now I can trust what's in that can or that bottle or that box. But we know that's a lie. What are you going to do with all these people that never went to school to learn how to be a chemist, that know how to translate the holographic language of that language that is represented by those elements that are in that can? I trust the manufacturer that grabbed the cans, put what is in that can that I'm going to put in my body. And then I find out 2 years later that people are dying because of what's in that can. because they trusted the can and the information on the can, only to find out if they didn't understand how their computer works and understand what they're putting in it, they wouldn't put that in their computer. So they got to know what they're putting in their computer. So you see how this works now that they realize they lie about everything. They lie about everything. I can't trust the food that's produced. I can't trust the technology that's produced. As a matter of fact, anything that's being sold on the entire market, how do I know that the person that represents the identity that is selling the technology, that this technology that I believe is going to help me isn't going to help me at all? You're not going to know until you experiment. Unless you know how that technology works. And therefore you already know the result. So that means if you haven't experienced what everyone else has experienced to know what the result is going to be and the use of that energy by the consciousness that produced that technology, how are you going to know? I trust that you're not going to harm me. Now you understand why I came in here. Remember I did a video on that? One has to be willing to experience everything that is possible to experience that went wrong in order to figure out how it went wrong. And that's a full data analysis. That's why the one is here. Because one could do things that others can't do because of an administrative override ability. The one has the last say. So when I experienced Karen McDonald putting this thing up about a technology that has now come out, which is like a foot device, which is, I believe, put out by iTerra. And then there's another friend of mine named Nicole that's saying this TerraWand, this terahertz, oh my God, it's been able to do this, it's been able to do that. Hey, wow. Because remember, a lot of these folks that are making a lot of these technology devices realize, man, people wanting to get healed fast. Whoa. Okay, well, remember, the difference between inverters and torque converters, the difference between inverters and accelerators. So if you want to use that technology in order to be able to heal you as a result of the trauma that you've been through, that you experience on the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, all the levels, right? Okay, so you want to heal yourself using an adjunct, an artifact technology that is connected to what? The beat system. So in other words, we are using dead light energy technology in order to heal ourselves. Okay, so I've covered this before, okay, about, I have not had, how do I put this? I've not had the luxury of time because of the speed at which I have to go through and do the things that I do with the energy that is represented by my oversoul, my consciousness, as a polarity integrator. Works a little different, right? Yeah, so when I had to heal me, we already know how that works. I've not had the benefit of a TerraWand. I've not had the benefit of a Rife system. I'm old school, right? I simply say it's the good old-fashioned way, which is the elemental command function, which is communicating directly with the elements, directly with the one, directly with mama, directly with the security teams, the guardians, for why we're here. Yeah, I know, Max Spears. So it's just like, who do you trust? I trust what love is, because love is what heals us. That's right. Love is what heals us. And love is a feeling. And that's what it feels like when you experience a soul that is experiencing eternal love and is sharing that eternal love with us that I experience in me, that I share with all of you. That's the energy that I use to heal. That energy is right here in my heart and my soul. But I do qualify that. Okay? Because I realize that anybody that is using their consciousness or soul consciousness energy and wants to develop a technology that does in fact help somebody else, allows them to be able to get information they need to get in order to make decisions that are in their own behalf, right? I get that, right? But I'm also very mindful, okay, of technology and Atlantis and how long it takes to remember, or if we will, like Aaron and I talked about this today I'll give you an example. One of the guys that lives here, okay, was he's haven't been out there working on his car all day long because he did something in which he now experienced the result in the future where he put too much oil in the car. Okay. So now he's got to use his energy to fix, right, something that could have been prevented. And you'd say, well, how could he have prevented that? So that he's not having to spend his energy in the future by something he did in the past. By knowing the result before it happens. Like having a built-in looking glass. Oh, well, if your neurons are running low power, right? Blowing holes in your energy field and your state of awareness is so low, you're simply not aware of the results. In other words, you're not really paying attention. It's like, aren't you supposed to know better? Well, if you check the oil in the vehicle and you say, okay, right? In other words, hey, just throw it in there, right? So now we're back to precision. Now we're back to measurements and making sure that we do this right so that I don't experience a negative result in the future. So it does have everything to do with your state of awareness to be aware of the future result of what we're doing now with the use of our energy. So that we don't what? Harm anybody. Future proofs past, back to the future. Knowing what works. That's chapter 5. Love is what works. So I'll leave you with that for the afternoon. It's like it's funny how when I become aware of these other technologies that are now being brought onto the market, right? And I've certainly used some of them, right? And now you see some of the what we call pitfalls. Fell in a hole. The exceptions to the rule, right? Okay, now people are gonna. Now you can see how when the coconut wireless, word's gonna travel fast through the neurons, through the net, right? Through the morphodynamic field structure. Oh, now they're gonna go. Itera produces a product that now produced this result where these folks were heavily damaged. Oh, don't buy anything from Itera again. So now you have somebody over here that's promoting Itera products. Okay, so you have that neural network, right? It's supporting Itera by giving them electrons for what it is that they produce. And here's another product where you have neurons communicating with other neurons, letting them know, oh, look what happened. Oh, can I trust Itera that they know what they're doing? Or is this at the practitioner level? Now we're back to what we call the patient relationship with a practitioner and training levels. You know, remember before how it used to work with doctors when Big Pharma came about? Said, hey, you're a doctor, so when I come to see you as a patient, I'm going to trust that the training, your level of intelligence, that you operate here, because you wouldn't have got a diploma if you weren't highly intelligent and knew what the hell you were doing, right? Because guess what? I'm going to put my health and fitness in your hands because you're going to do a diagnostic test on me. Now we're back to Tom Cruise, right? And an idiot light goes off in that computer. Hey, man, there's a glitch in that computer, just like they do at AutoZone when they plug that diagnostic device into your car. Hey, here's the codes. The codes are telling you what's wrong, right, with a computer. Okay, so fix it. It's done. Right? Self-repair biotech. Right? Self-repair the computer. Right? Remember? Boot up the PC. Right. Hey, error check. Doing a scan. Yeah, I know. See where we're at here? Data analysis. Run a data analysis on this, right? And so what you have here, as an example, again, is that the doctor that I went to, oh, you used to be an engineer, now you're a doctor. Okay, where'd you go to school at, buddy? And by the way, you can get their whole back. As a matter of fact, you can even find out what the grades they got. Oh, you scored a D in that subject, and you scored a B in that subject. Oh, but you scored really good grades in all this. So it's just like, how much information you want on your doctor before you make a decision to even have anything to do with them? What is that called? Open source data. Now I got all the data on you. I'm looking at all the data that represents everything that you've experienced. I think I can trust you. Because you're running on 71% light. That's not bad. Okay? That means you were learning through the light, which is what love is. I can trust you. Okay, what do you know how to do? Teach me. Now, we know that love was the first teacher, right? No mistakes, no errors. That means that the system design works exactly as it was designed, which means it's not going to break. Now, jump ahead into wormholes. Alters, alternate methods, right? Methodologies. So you see how we sort of come full circle to this about how fast we're learning. Not to repeat the same mistakes twice. Right? I got it the first time. Right? Oh, but we wiped that out of memory. We got rid of those records. We don't want them remembering. We don't want them remembering. Now, we may know, but they don't know. So you know that when the light starts pouring in here, that kind of light is going to expose it all. And so you begin to really realize, and one of the reasons why this was critical in terms of the incremental stages, the amount of energy that was going to come in here, is the reaction state of those that are waking up bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. When it's like, here are all the skeletons. Throw them all out. Right? So there has to be a certain level of healing, which means I can accept the truth. I know, because I've been through that myself. And that's when we get brutally honest with our own soul, with the one that we're connected with. Because I know that's where the real healing takes place. That's right. Real healing is the inner you, the inner soul with the inner one, which is the first one. The first son. So I make it easy because it really is that simple. And so yeah, and so this is where we're at, and what it means is it makes it easy to know what to do. Right? It's much like when I go down the beach. I've always got me. I've always got the relationship that I have with the one, the soul relationship I have with the one, the grand creator, my creator. I'm always there. And it always works. You know, it's just like I thought about doing what I had actually shared on a couple other videos that I did. But when I was in Reno, Nevada, and on a couple of different occasions, I was there one time when I met that girl who was, and I just met her online. I never met her face to face. Who lived in Lagos, Nigeria, and so. You know, people were warning me, oh, this girl wants a scam and she's just wanting money from you and it's going to give you song and dance. You know, that, hey, you know, feel sorry for me and send me money because you're an empath. You know, you're willing to give up all your money in order to help me because that's the nature of who you are in spirit with your soul. Right. So, and I know that Arshaya talked about this. We're easy to take advantage of because you're so kind, you're so gentle, you're so caring, you're so giving, you're so generous because you're in love and service to others, right? While at the same time protecting your shield, right? So, and I'm fully cognizant of that, okay? But in this particular case, there was an underlying motive, and that was that those folks that were saying these things to me really didn't understand what the underlying causality of my intention was. But you would know that if you ever saw a letter in an email that she sent to me about a year and a half later. And that had to do with what she was learning by having a relationship with each other, of what it means to connect and communicate heart to heart, soul to soul, and live in the truth. Because the heart and the soul and the heart and the soul, when the heart and the soul are communicating to each other, they're brutally honest. Which means they're not afraid to express anything that we've ever experienced. Because now she really knows you. Now she can trust you. Because now she knows that you will never lie to her. Now she can trust you. Now it becomes a mutually beneficial relationship where now we're sharing power, which is balance. It is equal and balance between a girl and a boy. And that's what we learned being together. And she acknowledged that when she sent me that email. Before I got that letter was when I was in Reno, Nevada, and I was paying, I forget how much it was, but living in a cockroach motel. So if you've ever been to Reno, it gets a little bitey cold there. When the cold wind comes down with the snowpack, you know, Donner Pass, remember that story? Comes down off the Sierra Nevadas at about the 4,600 foot level there in Reno. So in January, it gets a little nippy, okay? Particularly if you don't have any warm clothes, you know, some nice warm sockies that you can wear, right? Because you want to keep your extremities warm, like your toes and your hands and your head, right? And so she was wanting some money because she needed some medicine for her daughter that she said was dying of leukemia. So I realized that if I sent the amount of money that she was asking for, I wasn't going to be able to pay my rent. And I knew that if I did this for her, I'm going to be out on the cold streets of Reno, Nevada, just like a homeless person, you know. No money for food, no place to stay, no job, right? And so this is actually important to convey this, particularly when you get into not only trust issues and love issues and the one you're with, but when it comes to playing head games. See, we don't play head games with ourselves because we're always living in the truth because we know what the truth is because of the relationship that we have with our Creator. So what I don't do is I don't play head games with my Creator. That's sort of silly, right? Okay? So what happened was I remember the response that I had when I was on my way down to Walmart to send her a MoneyGram to Lagos, Nigeria, and knew that I was going to be out. I wouldn't be able to pay my rent. But I didn't worry about that because it hasn't happened yet. And this is one of the things you learn when you're in Alcoholics Anonymous about past, present, and future. And you've learned to live in the present moment, experiencing what love is. You implicitly trust who you are because that's what we experience in the present moment. So the future hasn't happened yet. The past is already gone, which is water under a rainbow bridge. Right? That's right. It's gone. It's gone. Okay? Future hasn't happened yet. All you got is right now. So they had a way of saying, quit pissing on the past. Quit pissing on the now. Quit pissing on the now. You can't do anything. That past, that image, what you experienced at the completion of that magnetic moment, that's gone. Right? You want to create a brand new experience? Create a brand new experience. Experiencing what love is. So when you're always in the love mode, love is natural protection because that's a natural flow of that energy. It's in perfect balance. So I was playing a little game with myself when this was going down, walking through 20, 25 mile an hour winds It was about 11 degrees out, so the wind chill was somewhere around 8 or 10 below, right? I'm on my way to go down that, and I had an image when I'm not going to be able to stay in that room anymore. And so you realize, oh, and then I realized I know better than that. Everything's going to be just fine. Right? And it did. Okay. The light is always taking care of the light when the light is doing light work. Okay? That means that you trust your own soul, because that's the true identity of who we are, because our soul is experiencing the one, which is what love is, which is real. See? So now you get into the head game side, which means I don't play games with my creator or my own soul, because I know what the truth is. And so when you're living in the truth, you're living in love, because that's what we experience as a living spirit integrated with a soul. So that makes it relatively simple. And so that's how we heal. Healing within ourselves. Having a connection with the one, because the one knows us. I'm not going to retread the same thing, but it's true when you've chosen to light yourself on fire. Serve forever. That one now knows you're honest. You're being brutally honest with yourself, who you are. That means you're brutally honest with your creator. Now they can't change you. Because now you've gone into becoming a single magnet, a monad. So now when you're running your oversoul to heal yourself, your oversoul can heal you. On behalf of the one, for the work that we do on behalf of the one, which is the law of one. The first one. The first crystal spiral. Kirasha. Maharaja. Alhambra, Alhambra, Alhambra. I love you all. Be good yourselves. Have a beautiful night wherever you happen to be.